So there's a huge crossover in our areas of work when it comes to looking after family. Why do you think your area of law is so important in that area?
Because it is future planning. It's planning for that awful eventuality ultimately. So it's planning your finances as well. If something happens to you in the future, putting something in a will in place if something happens to you. You can make lasting powers of attorney, which is planning for if you lose capacity. It's hoping for the best, but putting some sort of insurance policy when the worst happens. If you don't do it, and the intestacy rules apply, it's not good. You know, they're very archaic rules, the intestacy rules. So if you pass away without a will, that person won't inherit. They're not a spouse. The intestacy rules, if you do pass away and you're married, only the first 322,000 plus personal chattels go to the spouse. The rest, if you have children, is divided between the spouse and children. And sometimes the spouse won't want, if you have a property, for example, they don't want to own the house that they're living in with the children. I know I wouldn't want to, as much as I love them. I don't want them to have control over that asset, you know. So it's really, really important to have to plan for the future. Funnily enough, this morning on the news, they were talking about a program that's coming out about planning for death. And it was talking about planning for your funeral. And the couple that were on it, it was a couple, and they were saying that really, really hit home with them because they hadn't ever talked about it and thought about it. And they were talking about how they realised that if you don't have those conversations, if something happens, it would be awful. You're grieving at the time. No one knows what your funeral wishes are. Your estate might be in a bit of a mess. So you might not have had received tax advice. So there might be tax implications to you dying without a will, or tax implications with a will that's not correctly drafted, for example. So it's really, really important just to plan for that worst case scenario and plan for the future. And it really helps those other family members that are going to be left behind.
I remember acting for a client once actually, and she was living with her partner. They'd been together a long, long time, but they'd never married. And he was still married to his ex-wife. And he'd died, and without the divorce being finalised. And so effectively his ex-wife then inherited the property that his new partner was living in.
Yeah.
And it was just a mess. And actually it was really hard to say to her, well, actually, you're kind of going to have to try and establish a claim in the property, but under law, his ex-wife is going to get it and is probably going to try and kick you out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've seen the other flip side when you have couples that are engaged, due to be married, and then that person passes away and nothing's in place and they've died intestate. And again, they said, but we were engaged, we were going to get married. Sorry, it doesn't matter. The rules are the rules, unfortunately. So it's really important to get that in place. And then, you know, the way I say it as well is you can forget about it for a while.